everybody, I'm Jones and welcome to my channel. This is the place where I cook up healthy and tasty plant-based recipes that are perfect for families or anyone who wants to eat more healthy food without sacrificing flavor or satisfaction. If that sounds like you, please hit that subscribe button and be sure to click on the bell too if you want to receive notifications whenever I post a new recipe. Spring is nearly here and I am dreaming of a garden full of salad. So even though there's a blizzard going on outside right now, today I am going to share with you not one, but two of my favorite kale salad recipes. So there are actually several components to these salads that I'm going to share today, and that means that this video is not just one recipe, not just two recipes, but six different recipes. 6! Each component is really awesome on its own, but you can totally mix and match them however you want, and you can add them to different things. They keep great in the fridge, so that means you can make them ahead of time and just add them to whatever kind of salad or dish that you like. But they're definitely my favorite additions to the basic kale salad. So here's what I'm going to cover. Number 1 is my super easy pickled beet recipe. This is something that can be made ahead of time and kept in the fridge for a really long time so that you can add it to salads and burgers whenever you want an extra dose of flavor and nutrition. It's really great on its own too, and I love to eat it that way. So good. Number 2 is another super easy recipe that you can make ahead of time and keep in the fridge. It goes great on salads, sandwiches, and my favorite way to eat it is on top of a baked potato or a baked sweet potato, and that is BBQ Tempeh Strips. Number 3 is my super easy baked potato fries. Now you may have seen these before or perhaps even tried them, but if you haven't, you need to get on the bandwagon right now because these are awesome. Number 4 is my quick and easy and oil-free maple mustard dressing. Now this is one of my favorite dressings of all time, and I put it on nearly every salad I make. It also makes a great veggie dip. Number 5 is the first version of my kale salad recipe. This is the foundation to which you can add different toppings and mix and match them to your heart's delight. And number 6 is the second version of the kale salad, just to show how you can easily change up the recipe by adding a couple of different additions. So without further ado, let's get into the recipe. We're going to start off by making the pickled beets, which is one of my favorite things to add to salads. I started by buying a bunch of beets from the store, or you can use them from your garden if you have them. This bunch had a variety of red, golden, and striped beets, and I just cut those in half and added them to a big pot of boiling water. Then I boiled them for about 20 minutes or until they are fork tender. Once your beets are cooked and tender, you want to cool them off. You could quicken that process by running some cold water over them. And then you want to peel the beets. And the great thing about cooking them this way is that the peel comes right off and you don't have too much extra waste. And speaking of waste, I recycle my scraps by composting them. So you can see I have a little plastic container next to my cutting board, and I put all my scraps in there, and then I take them out to the compost. Once your beets are all peeled, then you will start slicing them into thin slices, and look how beautiful those came out. And then we start layering them into a large container. I use a glass container with a tight lid. And then we're going to slice up some red onions into thin slices, and those are going to get layered on top. So this is really pickled beets and onions. If you don't like onion, you could also try using garlic. But we're going to continue layering the beets and the onions until the container is full and we've used up all our lovely beets. Once I've finished layering the beets and onions, I add a tablespoon of sugar. You can use any kind of sugar you like, but I think I used coconut sugar here, and a tablespoon of salt. And then we're going to fill the container halfway with vinegar. I used apple cider vinegar here, but I use rice vinegar a lot, and really you could use any kind of vinegar you want except for balsamic. And then I added some cinnamon stick that I broke up to easily fit in there, and the cinnamon just adds a really nice depth of flavor to the beets. These beets are looking really great, and the next thing we want to do is give it a good shake so that we incorporate all those ingredients. So make sure you have a container with a nice tight fitting lid so that you don't spill beet juice everywhere. Moving on to our tempeh. You can use any kind of tempeh you like. I used this Trader Joe's brand, which worked really well. And we're going to boil the tempeh for about 10 minutes. And there's a couple of reasons why we do this. One is because some people say that they think that tempeh has a slightly bitter taste, and this helps get rid of that. And two, because it helps the tempeh soak up more of the marinade. Now, I've tried it both ways, and I don't see that much of a difference, except that it does soak up more of the marinade. So this is optional. You don't have to do it if you don't have the time or if you forget. Don't worry. So once your tempeh has boiled and cooled and dried a bit, you want to slice it into thin strips. And then we're going to add some barbecue sauce. Again, I use this Trader Joe's brand because I love Trader Joe's, but this is not sponsored. And put some of that barbecue sauce into the bottom of the container. Start adding your strips and make sure they are all covered with the sauce. I usually add a little more before I start my second layer, so there's plenty to cover the tempeh strips with. And then once they're all in there, I add a little more sauce because you gotta have lots of sauce. Then I just put the lid on and put them in the refrigerator to marinate for at least 2 hours. You can marinate them overnight or for a couple of days. And then I start laying them on a baking sheet. Now I have a silicone baking mat here, which I highly recommend, especially for this recipe, because the barbecue sauce does caramelize and it would be really hard to clean off just a regular pan. So if you don't have a silicone mat, then I recommend using parchment paper. And we will bake these in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 30 minutes, and you want to turn them over about halfway through. And this is what they will look like. I keep these in the refrigerator. They last a really long time, so you can add them to salads or sandwiches whenever you want. Next, we will make our baked potato fries. You're going to love these. They are so easy to make. Now, I started with some steamed potatoes just because they cook faster and they get a little crispier when you steam them first, but you don't have to do that. There are plenty of times when I make them without steaming them first, but it does take longer for them to cook in the oven. And I laid them out on my silicone mat and sprayed them with a little bit of olive oil spray. And it helps it get a little more crispy and also helps the spices stick to the potato wedges. I use any number of combinations of spices for these, but this time I used the chili lime seasoning blend, again from Trader Joe's. Love that place. And this is such a good seasoning, and I just sprinkle it all over the potatoes and then put them in the oven at about 400 degrees for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how crispy you like them. And there they are, looking so golden and delicious, and I wish I could eat a batch of these right now. Now we're going to make our salad dressing, and for this you're going to need mustard, soy sauce, apple cider vinegar, maple syrup, and tahini sauce. And this is a super easy recipe because you just put equal parts of each. So I usually do a 1/4 cup of each, and that makes a jar full of dressing, but if you want to make less, you could do like 2 tablespoons of each, or if you wanted to make more, you could bump it up to 1/2 cup of each. But this fits really nicely in the jar, and then you just put the lid on and give it a really good shake, and then it's done. And it keeps really well in the refrigerator, and this is my absolute favorite dressing. And now on to the kale part of the kale salad. And this is some kale that I grew in my garden last year. You can see it all growing in the background there. And kale straight from the garden is absolutely the best, so if you have space to grow kale, I suggest you do because it is so great. And we're going to add some avocado. I did about 1/3 here, but you could do 1/2 of an avocado or 1/4. And then we're going to add a little bit of the salad dressing, and this is all going to get massaged into the kale. So if you've ever eaten raw kale, you know that it can be kind of chewy and tough and not very pleasant to eat. So this just helps break down the kale and makes it a lot more palatable and easier to eat. And now we're going to add our other components. We have the pickled beets, and we have our BBQ tempeh. And for this salad, I added some fresh tomatoes from my garden and some homemade sauerkraut. We're also going to add some toasted pumpkin seeds. I just put a small handful onto a small baking tray and put it in my toaster oven for about 2 minutes. You don't want to keep them in there too long because they do burn easily. And there is our gorgeous kale salad number 1. Now I make this all the time, and if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen this a few times in its various forms, but this one has our beets and our BBQ tempeh and some nice homemade sauerkraut and toasted pumpkin seeds and fresh veggies from the garden. In fact, most of this salad was from my garden. That batch of pickled beets were beets that I grew in my garden, the kale, the cabbage, and the sauerkraut, the tomatoes. So this is a really awesome if you have garden vegetables that you can use. And this is salad number 2, and this one incorporated those yummy baked potato wedges. I also added some tomato and cucumber and a nice scoop of hummus because those potato wedges dipped in hummus is just the best thing ever. So you can see how versatile this recipe is and all the different components. You can mix and match them however you want. You can add whatever your favorite veggies are from the garden or from the fridge, and just have a lot of fun and eat a delicious, healthy salad every day. So there it is. 2 of my favorite kale salad recipes, along with 4 other components that you can make ahead of time and keep in the fridge for whenever you're ready to eat it. You can make the whole salad at once as part of your weekly meal prep, and it'll keep great in the fridge for a few days. I love my kale salad, and I am so looking forward to having an abundance of kale growing in my garden this summer. In the meantime, I know my local grocery store has it, and I'm sure yours does too. It's really inexpensive, so I hope that you will incorporate more of it into your diet because it's so good and so versatile. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a like, subscribe, and please leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Do you love kale salad as much as I do? What are your favorite toppings? You can also follow me on Instagram or visit my blog, vegerarchy.com, for more delicious vegan recipes. In the meantime, this is Jones, peacing out. See you later.